Welcome to another live interview with a guest on Moving Home with Charlie. I'm Charlie Lambden. My guest today is a living, breathing, working current estate agent in South London. He's someone who I've never had as a client or never had a commercial relationship with him whatsoever. But I encountered him because he was the first estate agent ever to sell a home for a seller who came through the Best Agent website, my property website, Best Agent, back in 2020. And he proved the point that I've always made, which is it's not a brand that sells your home, it's the individual. Because I've never been able to say, oh, you should go with small agents, you shouldn't go with corporates. Because sometimes, as was the case in 2020, the best agent for those sellers worked as a corporate. He was a branch manager of Kinleys in South London. He is now a self-employed individual agent as well. And he, through his Instagram channel, I have been watching him for a while as he set out on his own. He left the corporate world, set out on his own, has been building it up. And he has been living, and I've been watching quietly from the sidelines, a bit creepy, a bit stalkery. He has been living and the example of what I say all agents should be, and what so few agents are, which is he's transparent. Transparency pays. Transparency builds trust. Trust gets you customers, and with customers you get transactions. And so for all of you sellers, this video is especially for sellers who are either about to sell and don't know how to choose their agent, or are on the market with an agent who's not getting them any offers and you don't feel like you're going to get anywhere with that agent. And if you are watching today, I would encourage you to give your questions in the live chat. If you're watching this afterwards, when it's recorded, then please put your questions for Jack in the comments, or go to the link in the description below to find him on Instagram, where I'm sure he'd be very happy to take your questions there as well. Because I'm going to exploit Jack's time for free to help you guys ask difficult questions that you don't feel you can ask your local agents because they're not impartial. All right. So without further ado, let me bring Jack in. This is Jack Terry. Jack, good afternoon. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Hi Charlie, how are we doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Fantastic. Let me just get this headline up on the screen here, and let me just see who we've got watching today. Hi, Nikki. Hi, reviewer. So, Jack, I'm just going to recap the story of those first vendors. Lee and Roxy was their name. I remember they were friends of a colleague of mine who came to us when we were just building Best Agent, releasing it to the wild, saying, look, we're about to sell our house because we've got to move out of London. We're moving to the country. We're just going to go with the agent we used last time. We weren't blown away, but they were okay. And they asked us for our advice. They said, look, what should we do? And we the key thing here is we did not tell them who to choose, but we did tell them how to choose. And when they followed our advice, they discovered you and they instructed you. And if I remember rightly, you got them well in excess of asking price. I know the market was crazy then, but you got them well in excess of asking price in a very short space of time. In fact, I don't even think it went on the internet. I think you sold it with a few phone calls for more than they were expecting. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, we had a house further down the road that wasn't as immaculate, and that had gone over. And I said, well, look, I'm not going to lie. I think you've got the opportunity to go for a record price here. I also knew that those houses would go for a hell of a lot more money. So I thought, well, in my head, I was doing the maths about if it's a 2-bed and you do the loft on it and it's worth that amount, that's another selling point. So, it was just perfect. And yeah, the buyer that we got in had missed out on the other one, and I wish all the sales were as simple as that. But yeah, right buyer, right time, right property, right phone call.
Yep.
And I knew we could go for kind of a record price for the road at the time for a 2-bed, just because of certain factors. And I'd worked in the area for 7-8 years.
So you knew the market really well, and that's obviously that's really important. But so
yeah,
for any sellers watching this who are watching it, but maybe they aren't watching it live, so they can't answer the question now. I know that the number one question I get the most from sellers when they're choosing an agent is they say, Charlie, we hear what you say. We hear that our choice of agent is really important, but we've been talking to agents and we're finding it really, really hard to tell them apart. how do we make sure we don't pick the wrong one? How do we make sure we've picked the right agent? So my question to you, Jack, is what are the typical things that most mediocre to bad agents do that they say to people on a pitch or in that marketing appraisal meeting that works, that gets people to sign up with them when they shouldn't? What are the tricks of the trade that they should watch out for?
We've got buyers lined up, ready to view.
So disregard that comment.
Yeah, that's one of them. And I guess it's comparing the values, isn't it? So it depends if you're getting the first agent in or the last agent in. If you're getting the first agent in and you're very unaware of the actual price of your house, you might think, oh, that's great when they walk out the door. But then actually, when you get the other 2-3 people in, the guy was 50 grand higher, and you're like, oh, maybe it's all about evidence really when you're valuing and showing people what's around the corner that's sold and not sold. So but yeah, I guess overvaluing, saying you've got buyers lined up. I mean, for example, I spoke to a lady the other day who went on with an agent. They said, I'm thinking, brilliant, well, you'll be under offer by Monday then. So I rang her on Monday to get her booked in, and she said, oh no, we didn't have any viewings. I was like, oh, didn't you say that your agent said they have viewing? She said, oh yeah, but it's only been on a week. I'm like, hang on, well, if they had buyers lined up, they would. So there's a few things, that people say, but overvaluing is the main one. It's valuing to win it rather than valuing to sell it. Does that make sense?
So as an estate agent, how would you react to one of the things that I tell sellers, which is that discussing the property's value is actually a distraction and a red herring? Because if marketed correctly and well, the property will get what the property is going to get. And what actually sellers should be asking agents is, what's your plan and how is it different to other agents? What's your service difference? Why should I pick? My property will fetch what it's going to fetch if it's marketing correctly. I know that as a seller. What I want to know is what sets you apart from the others that improves my chances of getting my home sold quickly for the best price. I think they should avoid value guessing, because it's just, whether you're right or wrong, it is always a guess, even if it's an educated guess, even if you are quite close. Because as you know, right, the more houses you sell, the more you're going to find this out. Sometimes they go for more than you expected. Sometimes they don't get what you expect. Even when you really think you know what's going to happen, it doesn't happen that way. And I just think it would be important to help undermine the corrosive practice of overvaluing, to start to say to sellers, don't talk about value. Talk about why that agent thinks that they're different from the others, other than value. What would your reaction as an agent be to that advice to sellers?
I think it's valuing in different markets. All right, so we're talking about valuing in the current climate, right? And we know things are a bit slower. Prices are not going up; they are coming down. They've come down a bit and they've stabilized a bit in certain areas, more pockets than others, whatever. So if you're valuing in the current market, it's all about pricing strategy to get viewers. That's it. So don't, like for example, I've just taken one on round the corner from my own house, and 2 agents said 500. I said guide price 475 to 500. And I backed up my reasons for that, and they've agreed to it. We're still looking for something slightly above 475. So when anybody rings in, I'm going to say to them, look, you've got to have at least 475, 48 to view this, or there's no point viewing it, right? But that will get more people to click it because it will look better value. If you go on at 500, someone who's got 475 might go, oh, that's a nice house, 25 grand over budget, I'm not going to go and view it. Because weirdly, we're going to go in and negotiate. They don't. Some people aren't negotiators. They don't get it. They don't understand the market. They don't watch it like we do. Whereas I go see a house at 500, I'm instantly thinking 475, right? They don't think like that. It's all about getting it on at the right figure to get someone in. And then look, the holy grail in this market is getting naturally slightly higher. It then builds the desire there that, oh, someone else wanted it, I want it as well. And then they know that they're buying a desirable house. So that's what you want to build in this market, right? And in a buyer's market, that buyer has got to feel so comfortable as they're paying, they're going to exchange in 4 or 5 months. Because there's nothing worse than a buyer, you get your 500 grand, and then in 3 weeks they go, oh, I've got buyer's remorse. Oh, I've overpaid. Oh, what have I done? And then they pull out, right? So you want to get a buyer that's happy with the price. You're happy with the price, and they're actually going to exchange, because agreeing it's monopoly money until it actually exchanges contracts. It means nothing at all, right? And that's where I get my buyers, for example, to send me an email about what they like about the house.
Okay.
And out of the last 5 sales, 2 of those, we've gone with the lower offer based on what they wrote in their email.
Wow. And the sellers are okay with that, because the sellers...
Yeah, because it's not, I don't want, okay, you get 500 on the asking price, but the buyer says, I love it because of the road, right? Then you get an email from Suzanne that says, my nan lived on here in 1975, down the corner. I went to a school here. We get the bus to this for work. My kids can go here. That's the buyer. That's the one you want to choose. Forget the money. That's the money. That's the one. She loves it. It's emotional purchase for her. Not the one that's like, yeah, well, if I don't get it, I'm not that bothered. You know, that's not the one you want to go with.
And this reminds me about one of the things that, you know, there are so many things that especially first-time sellers underestimate about the challenges of selling a property. You know, there's the marketing, the positioning, the pricing, there's the negotiation, and then of course there's the sales progression, which is one of the most important part. Because I love that expression. Never heard that before. An agreed offer is just monopoly money. That's just, it's absolutely right. It's monopoly money. That's such a great way of thinking about it. And I've never heard that before. I'm going to use that. You know, an agreed offer is monopoly money. Until it's exchanged, it's monopoly money. I love that. And so you be able to advise your clients and say, I would go with this one because they're much more likely to exchange than that one. That's where, because you do this all day, every day for a living, you get to spot that. And that's one of the things that I think sellers don't understand that agents do. They just think a buyer is a buyer is a buyer. And they don't understand that there are flaky buyers. I mean, you must have spotted flaky offers a mile off a million times, where they make an offer, you just know that you're through with it.
Literally 3 weeks ago on a house, met this guy, and he did the usual, Jack, I love it. I'm going to make you an offer. Now, I've got alarm bells ringing straight away. First, as I left the viewing, I'm like, yeah, all right, no worries. And I said to him, I need you to email me this, this, and this. Yeah, no worries. I'll get that back to you by the end of the night. Cool. No email comes in. Right. Perfect. So he calls me in the morning and says, right, I'm going to make an offer. Can you float this number with the vendor? I said, no, I can't float a number with the vendor. You need detail that for me. Okay, yeah, okay. Well, you can't say, no, I can't do that. If you're going to make an offer, you need to do it my way, or you're not doing it, right? The next day, he texts me, says, I've decided the house is not for me. Right? A bad agent would have gone, oh, absolutely, of course I can float the number with the vendor. You'd have agreed it.
Yeah.
Right? I would have agreed the number he was trying to float. I would have agreed that. And then the next day he would have gone, yeah, thanks, Jack, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
And you would have been like, wait, what? And then you would have looked absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
With your vendor.
Yeah.
This is what happens. This stuff happens because I did it in my first couple of years on the high street, because you're still new and amateur and you don't really know what's going on. You do that stuff. You go, yeah, of course I can ask the vendor. But as I say, it's not about that part. It's about why do they like it, for their own reasons for living there, and are they going to love that house in 6 weeks' time, 8 weeks' time, 10 weeks' time, 3 months' time? The chain falls out of bed. Are they still interested in 5 months' time? That's the one. That's the one you want to pick. Forget the extra 5 grand, the extra 8 grand, 10 grand, whatever. Doesn't mean anything until that exchanges.
Right. I'm just reading some of the questions that are coming in here, and it reminds me a lot of what I call armchair movers who they kid themselves that they're moving. They're never going to move. Oh, they're in the market. They're registered with agents. They're not viewing. They're never going to move. In my mind, if you're not viewing, you're not moving. You're not even close to moving if you're not viewing. You're just thinking about it. You're a window shopper. You're a tire kicker. If you aren't out consistently viewing properties, you're dreaming. And you may or may not move. And and I think that sometimes the people that then go and do actually start to view but aren't really committed, it's sort of they're committed in their head but not in their heart, and then they do what you just said, but they come out and they make an offer because they're like, well, I've offered now, almost like I have to offer, but then they back out. I get people messaging me saying, I viewed a property, Charlie, I made an offer, the offer's been accepted, but I don't want the house, what do I do?
Yeah, they're the worst people for me, and that's why I said to you, I have my process every time when I get a buyer. I can smell buyer, right? You can tell on the feedback. I'll tell you one thing that I have this thing is that if you're a buyer, do not keep your cards close to your chest, okay? Tell the agent, show the agent that you love it, because they're going to go, they love it. And then you're going to, you know, they really like that, they're going to buy it. Rather than going, I'll let you know, I'm not sure, I'll come back to you. And then you offer. Even if you did think you were serious, if we get multiple offers, the vendor's going to say, what do you think, Jack? And I'm going, well, I didn't really like the way they offered. But that, like, wow, look at that. Wow, that's nice. Oh, I love, we could put that there. Oh, you know, and even that, you're right, that buyer might buy it, but there's something about it that I've been in the industry a long time, and there's something about it that stinks.
Have you heard about, I mean, the way I advise people to make offers is always make it by email. And I say to them, you know, don't hide the fact you are interested, but don't gush too much, because unscrupulous agents will work that against you. You know, if you like it, and I always say, go away, sleep on it, and in the morning send an email with your offer, but always include your broker's details, your proof of deposit, the fact you've got a conveyancer lined up, and show that, because that stuff, again, doesn't that say to you as an agent, right, these guys have already got their conveyancer lined up, they've already got the mortgages, that, you know, if that comes with the offer email, what does that say to you as an agent?
100%. Yeah, 100%. And you'd be surprised the amount of people that I call up and say, when was the last time you spoke to a mortgage broker?
Yeah. I know. It staggers me.
And I'm like, what? Why don't you speak to them every week if you're out viewing? Because the rates are going up, down, up, down, up, down.
Yeah.
You know, before you go out and view another set of properties, ask them again, because then you know what your budget is to a T. It's not about your offer of, okay, you can lend 400 grand, fine, whatever. It's about your monthly 400. Or do you want to lend 350? Do you know that's where it is?
Yeah, I agree, and I think, you know, I get a lot of buyers on this channel asking lots of questions, and
who's this rather niche guy who says, walked it back already, don't gush when offering? I think that was you that said that, Charlie, not me. So I'm not quite sure what he's listening to there. So I'm a little bit confused with that one.
Hang on a second. I'm just trying to look for. So I'm trying to look for specific. So Mad Mountain Man has said question, but he hasn't actually asked a question. And again, so Smethic, right? Okay, just a sec, guys. It's impossible for Jack. I mean, Jack, tell me if I'm wrong, but it's impossible for Jack to give you advice just based on a price and a location, right? You've got to understand the house itself and exactly why it's different from other houses.
Within half a mile of the house, right? Exactly, half a mile of the house. Yeah. What's on the market that's sold? Yeah. What's not sold? When did it sell? What were the rates at the time? What was the? It's not just simple as that's the price, and absolutely.
Well, I'd love to actually also ask you your opinion on my general suggestion to sellers about when it comes to pricing in this market, in a difficult declining market. I always say, look for the closest comparables to your house that have gone under offer. Look at the asking price of ignore everything that hasn't sold. Ignore everything that's just for sale. Just disregard it, right? It's not selling. It's not going to help you price your property. Look at the stuff that's actually selling. That's the price you want to be closer at. And you want to be priced a little bit more attractively than anything else you're competing against that's similar. You want the buyers that are in the market for a house like yours to come to your house first. That's a general approach I suggest people take. What would you say to that?
It's all about price, to be honest, isn't it?
Yeah. So, okay.
I did a podcast with John Savage, who you said you spoke to, and it was very much about how do we achieve the best price for the vendor, and it was all on that, to be honest with you. Yeah, it was all on pricing.
You see, reviewer here has made a comment saying there may be the odd seller that's willing to take 25k less because of a buyer's backstory, but not the majority. Surely you're missing the point. It's as much about proceedability as it is about price, isn't it? Because there's just
25k is a lot. I mean, we weren't talking 25. If you're selling at $1 million, maybe, right? If you're selling at $500,000, we might be talking 10, 15,000, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's when it comes down to that. Are you willing to take the risk for the extra 10,000? That's where it comes down to. Are you willing to take the risk of possibly it falling through because you wanted that extra 10,000, or do you want to go with a lower offer, which is in a better position, or you've got a better feeling for them, or something like that? And again, 25,000 at $750,000 plus. Okay, that's probably about right. We're talking 10, 15,000. That's it.
This is a question from CY123 on YouTube. He says, agents are very cagey about the values of other offers that have gone in, even when the offer has been accepted. As transparency is key, would a good agent be more open about this? That's a really good question.
Legally, you're not allowed to, unless you get the asking price, I believe legally you're not allowed to share what the offers are on the table, I believe.
No, I don't think that's the case. You're not allowed to share. So GDPR says you're not allowed to share people's contact information. You certainly, I know agents that have a policy of saying these are the other offers that I've got, and actually by doing that, their approach is by being openly transparent. They're more likely to get, if there's an offer forthcoming, they're more likely to get it by being transparent.
You get loads of gazumping though when you do that. I think the way that I would like to do it is if someone wants to put an offer in quite a bit lower than one I've already say to them, look, I'm going to be honest, there's no point putting that forward formally. You're just going to waste your time. You're going to need to come in higher than that in your original offer. So that's what I would say. But I wouldn't say someone's offered 470. That's just complicating the game a bit. Because what if you've got four offers and you're doing that on every single one? That doesn't make any. The initial offer, and then I'll go back to everyone and say, look, I'm not going to share everybody's offers, but the vendors asked for the best offers by 5 p.m. Can you go away and have a think about the best offer you want to put down? Don't overstretch. I don't want you to, change your mind in a few weeks. Go to a figure that you're happy with. But if you don't get it, you're happy to walk away, right? Because the amount of times over the years you've gone, this is my best offer, and then literally the hour after you told them you didn't get it, they come up 10K. You know, that happens. I can't even imagine how many times that's happened to me in the last 10 years. It's bonkers. But a lot of the time, the vendors do stick with the original one they agreed. You didn't give me the figure you wanted at the time, so we're going to stick with the one we've got.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I had a very, very close friend of mine who was an agent in London for a long time, and he was extremely good, and he always used to get. He had a strategy that was the same he used on every single property, and he always ended up with competing offers and then sealed bids by a deadline. And I'd love to know what you think about this, Jack. His view was, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but his view was, my job is to extract the highest possible proceedable offer for my clients. And this is all 7-figure stuff. It was all high-end stuff, right? And I know that he was absolutely ruthless. He would not even say, I'm going to adhere or not. He would want absolute proof of funds before they'd even be considered invited to bid, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? So yeah. They would, the people who were invited to make best and final sealed bids had already verified their position. It's almost like an auction. They had to prove their proceedability before their sealed bids would be accepted.
Right. Okay.
They wouldn't accept sealed bids from someone that hadn't demonstrated funds.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, that's step one. So on the day, let's say it's 12 o'clock Friday, he'd sit down at his desk. He would open, let's say he's got 4 offers, right? Offer 1, offer 2, offer 3, offer 4. He'd open them out. And he'd go to the lowest offer first. So the lowest offer is the first one he'd call. And he'd say, I'm sorry, you've been unsuccessful. And he said 9 times out of 10, right there and then, that buyer would go, right, scratch that number out and put this number down.
Yeah.
He'd then go to the next lowest offer and he'd go round and round. And sometimes he'd have to call each buyer 2 or 3 times until it got to the point where he actually got the highest number. And then his client up and say, the highest bid is this. Now, some people think that that's unethical. His view was, I'm not telling the buyers what to bid. I'm not even telling them what the amount is. I simply tell them they've been unsuccessful. What they decide, I don't even ask them if they want to make another bid. I don't even suggest they should make another bid. I treat their sealed best and final bid as a best and final bid. But if they happen to say on the phone, actually, my new offer is this, I go with it. And he used to get 15% over asking in 7-figure properties like this. Most of them were cash buyers. I mean, it was an exclusive sort of area of the market. But
yeah,
what do you think about that? I mean, do you think it was wrong of him to do that? Do you think he should have just gone, whatever the numbers are in that envelope, the highest one in that envelope, that's it, it's done deal? Or
I mean, that was kind of the rules of the game. You know, if he kind of has done it in the past a handful of times and knows what the response is he just doing it before he knows they're going to increase? It's a tricky one with that, because he's obviously gone to everyone and said, this is the way we're going to do it, sealed bids, and kind of changed.
You see, his view was, I mean, he to his clients, he'd say to his clients, you know, you're instructing me because I will get you the best possible price. And he'd said to me, if I don't tell them they've been unsuccessful and open the door for them to bid, I'm not doing the right thing by my client. I'm not getting them the best possible price they could get for that property. That was how he saw it. So I can see both sides. I mean, it's frustrating if you're a buyer. I mean, those particular buyers were not buyers you're going to feel sorry for. And I don't think that you know, these are 7-figure cash buyers. They're not people that were scraping together a mortgage and had a broker and stuff. They were just, they were, you know, their conveyancers almost probably already holding funds kind of stuff as 7-day exchanges on the table. But anyway, it's a fun story. I just thought I'd ask what you thought about that, because, you know, if you can get more for a client, because you've qualified them and you know the buyers are proceedable, they've already got conveyances, that kind of stuff, isn't that your obligation as an agent?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Yeah, I guess it comes who's actually going to buy it.
Yeah.
Like, just as simple as that. I mean, this is it. Like, you know, if we're just going on, we're just picking a buyer over, well, that's the highest offer, let's go with that.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You know, you know, when you're in the corporate world and you're running an office, and all of your negotiators, 3 or 4 negotiators in the office, all come to you with offers on one property, you know, and they all want to get it agreed because they want to make their own commission out of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go back to that mentality of, okay, well, they're all the same, let's pick that. You've never met them as the manager, right? And that neg is going to sell them, oh, they're the best buyer ever, they loved it. And they didn't, because they're going to want them to be tied up. So it's weird, it's hard.
I don't know.
But yeah.
Did you ever come up against Douglas and Gordon back in the day?
No, they were too central. We were sort of zone 2, 3, right. South London. So where I was working.
What was really interesting about Douglas and Gordon back in the day was that, and the only company I've ever encountered that does this, is that all commissions for negotiators were shared equally. Right. Wow. So, and the interesting effect that, so for everyone that's watching this, what will typically happen is the negotiator whose buyer completes the purchase is the negotiator who gets the commission on that property, and that's it. Like, that's it. Like, of course, the branch manager gets his as well for listing it. But so that way the negotiators were fighting, and that's exactly how it always worked at Foxtons, right? You'd fight against each other. You'd nick deals off each other. You would gazump your colleagues. You know, you would that was encouraged at Foxtons. I remember I had friends who used to work there, and they did have a deal, and one of the guys sitting in the next door desk would come in with a buyer for that property at, you know, a couple of percent more and nick the deal.
Yeah, that was when it was. I remember that was more 2014, 15 market.
No, let's go back even earlier than that. But the point was this, is that Foxtons had a higher fall-through rate of deals. Douglas and Gordon's fall-through rate was very, very low, because the whole office as a team was motivated for deals to just go through. So they weren't always gouging each other's eyes out to get commission and to, you know.
That sounds great. I mean, I guess it would work in some offices. I think sometimes it's healthy to have competition, though. I'll be really honest with you. I think that, how do you grow in your career, and how do you grow as a, you know, how do you get a bit more drive if there's not a bit more competition? You know, I don't know. I think sometimes it can be healthy. So, yeah, it's good for the office and good for the team, I guess. But, you know, I do think a bit of competition is healthy.
I've got a couple of general questions here. I think would be a lot of people will be wondering what they are. So, Relaxing Wonders on YouTube says, what's a good number of viewers to attend viewing when selling a property? I mean, how many viewings should you expect typically?
Before I answer that, it all depends on what you're selling and where you're selling. So,
yeah,
be around the UK in your little village is very sought after. They get lots of locally who have got the smaller houses that want to go and view it before they're on the market. So you might get 5 or 6 viewings on that straight away from people local. Not everybody will be ready to go, but they'll think, oh, I like that because it's around the corner. So that might be a bit more. Question to answer, because everything's very different. You know, that's the thing. Like in this market, for me, if you can get 3 or 4 viewings in a week, that's actually a good week for me, I think. That's a good week, I think, because it's not really busy out there viewings wise. And your average 3 or 4 viewings in a week's good. But we only need one buyer. You need one buyer, so.
Yeah. Well, no, you need 2. You need 2 to make sure you've got the best price. You've only got one buyer. Maybe the seller's happy, it allows them to move on and they just to accept that one offer. But you don't know you got the best price with that 2 buyers, I always say. XR2828 asked a really good question. I'm really struggling to choose an agent. What if none of the ones you've met with seem to be anything special? Do I start considering corporates with long-term contracts?
Long-term contracts, dodge them. They're literally there to stop you going from. I don't even do contracts sometimes. Sometimes I just say, well, if you don't want a contract, that's fine. If you're not doing a good job, you can leave whenever you want. I think that is perfect, really, when you say that to someone on their contracts. Okay, we'll go at that price, but I want a 0-week contract. See what their response is.
I think it's actually also worth letting, and someone asked about qualifications and stuff like that, education, which is irrelevant. But what I will tell you, everyone that's watching this about Jack, is that Jack, you were employed at 2 or 3 estate agents, including Kinleys. You were made branch manager. You got promoted and you set up on your own. And you told me, are you happy for me to share your valuation to instruction ratio? Like how many pitches you go on that they choose you?
Yeah, if you want, yeah, fine. All right.
Yeah, so I think you said your number was 78%, which is staggering because typically speaking, I know because I used to provide agents with software that measured their conversion ratio of pitch to instruction, right? So MA to instruction, whatever you want to call it. And on average, it's 1 in 3. 1 in 3 is typical because most vendors get 3 agents around. Overall average 1 in 3. The better agents would get 50%. They get every other one. The really good ones will get. But you're saying that 78% of the people that you meet and pitch to choose you. That to me is phenomenal. And I think that you also said that most of your clients now come to you through your social media channels, especially Instagram.
Facebook's been amazing, actually, if I'm honest. I think it's the age group of people on Facebook are quite a bit the older generation that have houses and stuff. But you know, I was just giving out free information, Charlie, to be honest. People that were like, wow, we've never known this, and it's just giving you free info, and they just liked it, you know, and that's what.
Well, it's the transparency, and I think because we're simultaneously live streaming this on the Best Agent channel. I'm hoping that there are agents watching this because, am I right that you've been on your own? You set up on your own 18 months ago, and now most of your instructions are inbound to you through social media or other channels. You're not having to go out on the hunt for business. It's coming to you. And that, whenever I've seen that, and I've had a lot of agency clients over the years who are in exactly that position where literally most of their business just walks through the door or picks up the phone to them because of their reputation for transparency and delivery. And that's why I say to agents, transparency pays. Maybe not in the short term. You might lose out in the short term on a few instructions you might otherwise have got, but in the long term, you will build a lasting reputation for being trustworthy and reliable, and that will make people say to other people, if you're selling, you've got to call Jack.
Yeah, when I walk out of a house now, I always think to myself, I've not lied. So that's how I feel. And I say that to them when I leave. I say, look, every time I go home now, I work for myself. At least I can go home thinking, well, I didn't lie. I didn't tell them what they wanted to hear. I didn't say something to win it, knowing that I'm going to have to reduce it in 4 or 5 weeks. I've given them the 2 options on pricing. They can decide which one they want, and then that's it. You know. But I don't want to give away too many of my secrets, but I'm very, very data driven. So the stats and figures and data of certain price brackets and bits and pieces, it's really hard for the vendors to argue. Even if I go in there and they say, oh, he's expecting more, of course you won't. It's the market we're in. Everyone's expecting a bit more and they're not aware of how much it's actually come down. But once you start going into the detail of it, that was on at that's got a better bit than that. That's a bigger garden. That's the whole point. When I walk out, they probably sit there and think, to be honest, it's hard to argue with what you've given them. And that's why I don't mind going in first or last anymore. I used to want to go in last, as a lot of agents did, so you could ask questions. But I now know, because I go in first or last, middle, whatever, I know that they're going to get way more information out of our hour than they are with those, probably. Because I've got the time as well, I guess, when you work for yourself and you can go home afterwards and you work from home, and you can spend that bit more time.
Yeah. I mean, the other absolute classic, really easy technique I've always seen agents use is that actually, if when you leave a seller's living room or home, having spent time with them to discuss the sale of their house, they feel like you're the one that listened to their story, their situation, their reasons for selling, their reasons for moving, and you actually listened and responded and acknowledged to the reasons, their motivation, their life circumstances. The agent that they felt actually heard them is almost always the one they're going to go with above everything else. If all agents just sit there pitching my corporate this and my prop tech that and my data this, and but don't listen to what the seller needs to, because there's often a lot of emotion involved, isn't it? It's often to do with divorce or forced moves or that kind of stuff, and you need to, as a seller,
my friends, that's how I see them. We WhatsApp, we chat, I send an emoji, I send a little GIF or whatever it's called. We have a bit of a laugh, and I want my clients to, it's a stressful time moving and things go wrong and stuff like that. And I just want them to have a bit of a laugh while we do it, and if something's happened throughout the chain, we'll get over it, we'll move on, and that's what I've tried to do. I think it's so impersonal on the high street, and it's just so corporate, suited and booted, and it's just a bit boring, and you can't be yourself so much. It's kind of what I was Jack Terry at KO. I'm just Jack Terry. So I can be who I want, say what I want, speak how I want. And weirdly enough, people love it, because it's just,
it's not weird at all, is it? Because people can just sense the authenticity. Yeah, exactly. I've got some other good questions here. I want to answer this question first, and then you can. What is your opinion of Strike? Right. There are only two kinds of people they've now renamed, they now call themselves Purple Bricks, because they bought Purple Bricks for £1. I love the fact that Purple Bricks ended up being sold for £1. What a pile of shit. Purple Bricks, so Strike or Purple Bricks is the agency that says that they'll sell your home for free. The only two kind of people who use that are either people who actually understand the process and quite cleverly use it simply as a free way to get inquiries, and will handle the process themselves because they know how to do it. So for example, you might be a developer, you might be an experienced seller, you might even have worked in the industry, and in that scenario, go with Strike. You handle it yourself and save yourself a fee if you still think you're going to get the best price on your own. Or the other people that use it are people who completely underestimate the difficulty and importance of what estate agents do, and don't think it's worth any money for all the hours and time and service and skill that goes into negotiating and progressing a deal. If you really think that's not worth anything, then you would go with Strike. But yes, there are some people who sell successfully with Strike, but again, they're probably in the first category. Mostly,
but do they sell successfully with Strike? That's the question.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've had a few people over the last year or so say, actually, we did sell successfully with Strike. But again, the right property, right time in the market, it might just fly out the door just because.
But a good estate agent might have got you 20 grand more in a good market.
Yeah, exactly. So, what I mean, do you come up against Strike or Purple Bricks much?
Not really. I mean, look, the thing is, if you want cheap, right, then go with Strike.
Yeah.
There's no point having a conversation. If you're trying to talk about, I'm thinking of Strike, no worries. Off you go. There's no point, because I'm so polar opposite to that. It's ridiculous. And that's the thing. It's like everything, right? It's not like selling a car or a house. You're going to be dealing with your agent for 6 months.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even think it's a sales industry anymore. I really don't. I think it's customer service. Yeah. So if you think you can go and sell your house for £1 or whatever they charge, good luck. Wish you all the best. Crack on. Let me know if you need me. That's it.
Yeah.
And and at the end of it, they'll probably go, oh, God, was it worth trying to save that money or not? Yeah. That's where I think that there's a lot of people out there over the years that think we open a door and we point at a wall and you would get the asking price, right? And sometimes in a good market like that, you can feel like you sell everything very quickly. When things change and the market becomes a bit slower or a bit more static, you need a good negotiator and someone that's good with people, because people buy people. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, I know I go on viewings with people, I'm wearing a shirt or a jacket and trainers and jeans. They're wearing the same thing. We get on, we have a laugh. I'm going to get a better offer out of them, and I'm going to get, they're going to have a better experience with me than somebody else, rather than suited and booted, no rapport, completely different worlds. Yeah.
So, Jack, here's a question for you. Jack May on YouTube asks, how do we find an agent who does not insist on long time contracts? Here around Vauxhall, South London, everyone insists on 10 to 16 weeks.
That would be because they're corporate agents, surely.
Yeah, but listen, I mean, I was going to say to this, people forget, as the seller, you're the customer and you have the option to say, no, these are my terms. If I want to go with you, I'll go with you, but I'm not signing a 10 or 16 or 20-week contract.
In Vauxhall, you message me, I'll give you a self-employed agent like me, and they'll do you a 0-week or 4-week contract. Just message me and I'll get that for you.
All right, yeah. So Jack May, go to in the link below. You'll find Jack Terry on his Instagram link there. Oh yeah, so Mark Stephen Graham is actually a fellow agent. He's recently relocated from New Zealand back to the UK. And he asks, are your agents' fees based on an individual seller basis?
What do you mean? Sorry, I'm a bit confused.
You vary your fee based on the client?
No. I mean, I have a minimum fee. So if it's below, I won't go into too much detail, but I won't do a certain fee lower than a certain amount.
Yeah.
And it depends on, how good's the marketing, right? Will it be good for my own marketing? Can I do some cool videos that will get me more interest, people using me? So it varies. I have a basic bottom line fee that's like, look, that's it. To walk away. And if it's a really cheap property, 200-300 grand, I've also got a minimum fee on that. If we're talking 1.5 million, maybe we'll do something. But reality, I try and stick to the basics of, I think when you're new and you're starting out, you take anything, right? Because you just like, I'll have it. But then when you get to a point, you're like, okay, I'd love it, but I'm not going to go that low because I respect what I do and I believe what I do.
Yeah.
And I think I offer a better service a lot of the time than the corporate agents, if I'm honest. The customer service, definitely. So why should I reduce my fee when they don't?
Yeah. And Mark also asks, how do you justify your current fee if it is higher than other agents in the area?
Look at my Google reviews.
Yeah, there we are. That's a short answer.
Google me and have a look. You read through those. If someone's ever contemplating using me or someone else, that's all I say. I can sit here and try and blow my own trumpet. What's the point? They've done it for me. Just read through them and they'll give you all the things you need to know.
So Mad Mountain Man asks, how do you get through to agents when they keep listing the property at the same high prices? That's not the agent, that's the seller, Mad Mountain Man. It's not the agent. It's always the seller in that situation. Would you agree, Jack?
Yeah. I mean, there are agents out there, by the way, that really bug me when a house has been sat on the market for about 3 months, 4 months, and they go around there and they say to the vendor, oh no, we'll just put it back on at the same price. It probably just needs reloaded. And I'm sort of, I go in there afterwards like, are they having a laugh?
Yeah.
What? That doesn't even make sense. They're just going in there to try and win it, to sign you up, knowing that there'll be another 8 to 10 week contract and then it will be reduced in 4 weeks anyway. So that's what they're doing. They're going to go in there and get 25 grand off of it in 4 weeks time.
So Jack, Jill's got another question. What is Jack's opinion of Zoopla valuations?
I mean, they can be good sometimes, but a lot of the time they're not.
Why are you being so diplomatic?
Well, it's algorithms. I remember when Zoopla was quite big at some point. I can't remember when it was, 2015, 16 maybe, and you'd ring someone up for a valuation and they sort of say, well, Zoopla said 750, and you're sort of sitting in front of them and thinking, sorry, I've literally just showed you 2 on the road we've got under offer. Yeah, but Zoopla says 750. And you're like, wait, what? And it's just, and it runs, it's like historic data. So they might be 6 months behind, because if the land registry takes 4 to 6 months to update when they go through, it's running on old data. And actually sometimes they've had undervalue. I've gone around to some, even where I live in it, Zoopla said 420, and actually it's probably more 450. So it's just not reliable. Just call local agents and get them in. Yeah, try and not look at it.
So Zaz has a good question here. So Zaz is obviously a buyer. We have a very wide search area and all our ducks. So it means he's got his mortgage lined up, he's got a conveyancer lined up, and they've done everything so that they're proceedable buyers. We're very selective on what we view because of the travel time. How can we demonstrate to agents we are serious?
Well, are they chain free, under offer? We need to know a bit more about their selling position, I think, more than anything, and their finances, deposit sizes. When did you speak to a broker? That's going to work out. I mean, I used to get people in when I used to work for KFH that would go, yeah, we're looking in Southeast. They would go to the bottom of the list when you got a new listing on, because you're just like, what does that mean? You know, you're looking at Brockley, Lewisham, Crystal Palace, on a road. You're looking at Sydenham. I mean, how do I know what you want and where you want? The difference between Brockley and Crystal Palace is going to be completely different, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, Annie Anonymous, 200 to 300 grand in London is cheap, unfortunately, for London.
In Croydon, there's parts that are very cheap, by the way. It's a huge borough, so.
Anyway, right, I think we've been going, 47 minutes. I had no idea we go so long. I think it's time to wrap it up soon. So Jack, my mission with Best Agent, by the way, a lot of you who still think about how to find an agent, don't forget to try out Best Agent, bestagent.co.uk, the Find Your Agent service on there, which is how we try to help you find agents like Jack. In other words, agents who take it personally, take a personal responsibility to get you moved. The mission here is to bring transparency to the market, because transparency will end overvaluing, because except for the sellers that don't want to hear the truth and they want to hear a ridiculous overprice so that they can sit on the market and show their neighbors how much the house is worth for a year without selling it, which they exist, those guys. Such a waste of time. Yeah, guys, I am here to try to build bridges between reasonable, serious, motivated movers and transparent, honest, professional agents who get the importance and seriousness of their job and don't think, oh, it's easy, you just whack in the right move and wait for the inquiries to come in. Yeah, there is this minority of agents who clearly stand out from the crowd, spread around the country, right? You can always find one that's better than the others in an area. There might be some areas where you can't find it, but if you are selling, your choice of agent is the single most important decision that will affect how likely you are to actually succeed in moving. Nothing affects your chances of moving more than your choice of agent, especially in a difficult market with low transaction volumes like we've got now. So I hope you've all enjoyed this. Jack, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, thanks for all the questions. Sorry we couldn't get through all of them, to be honest. I can see there's quite a lot on there, so apologies for anyone that we haven't answered. If you have, my Instagram below or anything you can see, feel free to message me directly and I can try and answer that. I think someone's mentioned about doing an evening, but we'll chat about that later down the line.
I mean, we get a much larger audience in the evening. Everyone's at work during the daytime. And Jack, I'd be delighted to have you back on the channel to do an evening Q&A session. It'll be much rowdier than this. People have had a few sherbets in the evening.
I'm from Croydon, so I'm sure I've been born and raised in an area that's rowdy. So why not? Let's do it.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for taking time out to do this. Thanks for your answers and your advice. I hope you guys have found this a useful, helpful video. Go and check Jack out on Instagram. Even if you don't if you're a seller, go and look at his Instagram to get a feel for what you should be looking for in agents around you. When individual good agents are freed from the ties of corporate agency rules and are allowed to be themselves, you can form a better working relationship and you're going to get a better result and get your move done over the line. I'm going to stop rambling. Wish you all the best. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one. Jack, thanks a lot. See you soon. Cheers.